It's not 1990 anymore. Things have certainly changed. So Mac and I thought we'd have a little chat about how the world was in the 1990s and how modern youngsters, they don't know they're born, do they, Matt? And give someone just an impression of what the world was like.
Well, as an accounts junior in my first few years, you'd be carrying one breeze block of a laptop, which was hardly used, and in the other hand, you'd be carrying an audit file case, which was stacked with paper that was files from the previous year and the file you were going to be pulling together to go to present to your audit partner to review. The strange thing about it is, over the course of the whole week or two that you'd be there, you would be increasingly heavily on your left hand because it was all paper.
Yeah.
So much paper.
I remember being shown my first attempt at an audit document, which was I'd written in blue ink and the senior had written in red ink, and it was horrible. But it was there and it wasn't going anywhere. Do you remember your first?
I remember one of the firms I worked for back in the city. We had the seniors. Were allowed to only use writing pencil, because they probably get it wrong, and they didn't want to have left on the audit file
on their A3 sheets of paper.
On the A3 sheets of paper, but only partners could use ink pen, and the managers were allowed to use a biro.
Yes,
and it was almost like a hierarchy of what you were allowed to do depending on seniority, and those times.
And then of course you had to call. You were calling files to make sure every single letter, every single number on the front actually represented a number in the middle of the file. See, nowadays, the way people do their work, if you were in that environment, you really understood detail, didn't you? And you understood how to show what you'd done rather than whack it all on a spreadsheet and hit the auto sum and it work.
I think the massive difference is it's so much more easy to prepare a set of accounts off a computerized system now, that you then tend to make smaller changes, whereas the final accounts that were pulled together from the first systems, I remember, were actually having to be checked thoroughly. Typing and mistakes were in there. Everything was checked through thoroughly. I don't think anybody checks through quite the same way about accounting that's being prepared, or certainly what I see at a company's house is there's sometimes
so many mistakes at
company's house.
I mean, when you used to file stuff at company's house, you sent it in the post.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember you had company seals? As liquidators, we had whole cupboards of these great metal monstrosities, which was the way the company signed paperwork.
Yep.
And you wanted a company search, and there were companies who spent their entire time going to Cardiff or London. There was one in London as well, wasn't there? To pick up a company search, which turned up in a buff envelope.
Yep.
With microfiche. Remember microfiche?
I remember microfiche. I remember that.
Oh dear, I'm reminiscing. all those hours spent on a microfiche, trying to print it off. We were talking. My co-director and it was a former legal secretary. If you were doing a deal. The deal was being done and there were 3 sets of solicitors involved. You spent hours on a fax machine. We didn't have emails.
No.
So you'd get a copy of a contract. It would go to person 1, go to person 3, and then they'd then make amendments and it'd come back to you. It would then go to a typing pool, have to be checked, and then someone would be doing it again, and that would be someone's entire day just sending faxes.
Back in the day, my grandfather was a messenger in the city, so his job was going from stockbroker to stockbroker with all the various trades that they were being pulled together and all the paperwork for all the deals and everything else that was going on. That was an entire job that disappeared and vanished.
But when that's the other point is, if you're going to see a new client now, I'm quite sure you do your onboarding checks. You've got the address. At some point, you chuck that into Google Earth. It tells you where it is, how long it's going to take you to get there, so you can plan your drive if indeed you're going to drive there. Yeah. Whereas, do you remember it was the first thing you did when you went for a new job? You bought an A to Z.
Yes. My dad's first job was he got sent and got told to add up the page of the telephone directory to prove he could add up.
Yes, God. Yeah. How would he check that?
Don't know. I think I think that it was a test that they printed it off many times, and so they knew the exact answer.
Well, no, that's the other before. Remember, you had being in firms when they had every single copy of the Yellow Pages for the entire country.
Yes.
Took over an entire wall.
Yeah.
So do you remember sending your first email?
No.
Right, okay. So I remember seeing a story about sending mine.
I can remember sending my first email that I regret sending.
Well, you and your ex-wife is not really. So I remember, I'll tell you the story, my story. We'd just been given computers on every desk.
Yes.
And we had a training about this lovely thing called email, which meant we could send a message to someone, and we were chatting about whether it's a phone call or whether it's whatever it was. And so I typed up this email and I checked it out, make sure it added up, and I hit send. And my manager had a cardiac arrest behind me. He said, "Where the hell's that gone?" I said, "I think it's probably gone to the person I sent it to." It's not been checked. No one's signed it off.
Yeah.
The partner hasn't signed it off.
Yeah.
And we had about 2 weeks of trying to work out how we were going to go amend all the processes in the firm to take account of the fact that anyone could now send out something out the door without it going through a partner sign-off.
Yeah.
It was. I think nowadays, I think probably same in your firm, you don't see every letter that goes out, do you? Every correspondence.
No.
I don't see every. You have to have the detail about the junior members of staff have probably got a lot more responsibility now than they ever used to have. So anyway, so when you were in London, I was thinking about this. When you were in London, do you remember the sandwich bars in London?
I do, and they were a very different experience to what we have now.
Yeah. But I think most of them were still there just before COVID, and I think that's when they went.
Yeah, COVID really kicked a lot of people going into London all the time.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of the firms I worked for a while, in the downstairs there was the tax department. They had the dartboard in there over the road from the Chinese restaurant, and Friday lunchtimes were head across, get your takeaway, Chinese takeaway, sit down and eat it together en masse with quite a lot of the accounting and tax staff, play a bit of darts, and wander back upstairs because the partners will be in the pub till about 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, we had the partners in the pub, and we have the managers were in a bar at the bottom of our building.
Right.
So if you needed something signed, you looked out the window to where the managers were drinking, and then you'd go downstairs to get the thing to sign.
Yeah.
But that's the other point is, I'm assuming you were working before pubs were open all afternoon.
Yes.
And was it 2:30 they kicked you out? I think it was 2:30.
It depended, but very often most pubs would be about 2:30 would be closing hours.
And then City of London, they shut the pubs at 9, I think.
Yeah.
So I think I was thinking about 10 or 15 years ago, going through the City of London at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night, it was dead.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I went through the City of London at 10 o'clock on a Sunday, and I couldn't move.
Yeah.
The whole place was absolutely packed. It's just made how the world has changed.
But it's also, we have an office day out we do every year, and it's always been on a Thursday. The idea being is that staff could do their thing on a Friday. We didn't drag them up to London. And most of the time we've gone up there, it's been quite easy. Over the last couple of years, the Thursday nights when we've gone into the bars we've been finishing up in, it's been packed in the bar on a Thursday night because we'd be finishing about.
Well, Thursday's becoming the new Friday.
Yeah, it certainly has. Yeah.
Yeah. So go back to the sort of the bit more working, because obviously we spend most of our time working. Because there was lots of young guns that understood the computers and got to learn them a little bit better than the partner management group, who let's hope have all retired by now. And I remember a guy I was working with worked out he could play a modern computer game then, which I think was called Doom.
Yeah.
And he could play it on the firm's servers because it worked a lot better on the firm's servers because they were so big. And he'd do that for about 18 months. And then he worked out he could play with a mate of his in Hong Kong together using the same server. And I don't think it was ever discovered. Because nowadays that would probably get you into quite a bit of trouble.
I think so. I can remember my firm that I worked for, probably at a similar time, we had a choice on the office network of Doom or a Formula One race game, or there was Duke Nukem, and I think there may have been various other sort of card games and the like. And I don't think we ever got into a card school but we certainly had a regular thing for hanging on at work for an hour or two playing computer games networked over the office network against each other.
We played bridge quite often. and we had to play in 2 of the managers' offices who smoked.
Right.
So
That's something else that's changed.
Yeah.
Smoking in an office was something that was a completely groundbreaking
Yes.
thing when that got cut out, and you'd find all of the secretaries and staff troopsing out to the atrium outside and into the rain to have their cigarettes and smoke.
my director, colleague, and beloved wife has got so many pieces of work for our business because she knows she was part of the smoking crowd.
All right.
And she knew everything about every business that was in the various offices we've been in.